Picture this: finger paint on the walls, a stack of nap mats, a steady stream of tuition checks, a room full of toddlers, a few tantrums, and one question every new parent eventually asks: how hard can running a daycare really be? Here's the number that should stop you cold. Adjusted for today's prices, it costs roughly $28,000 a year to safely run one infant classroom. The average American family pays about $11,000. That gap doesn't vanish. It gets carved out of low wages, thin margins, and burned-out staff. So how did watching toddlers turn into one of the most financially impossible businesses in the country? And by the time we reach the year 2100, will it even look like a business at all? Quick gut check before we go further. Have you ever looked at a daycare bill and felt physically sick? Type yes in the comments right now if you have. You are about to find out exactly why that bill is that high, and it is not because anyone is getting rich off your kid. Let's go back to 1900, because that's where this whole broken system starts. Back then, daycare as a business didn't exist. If you were a working mother in a factory town, your options were brutal. An elderly relative, a neighbor paid a few cents, or an early day nursery run by a church or charity. These nurseries existed for widows and the desperately poor. They were never built to turn a profit. They were built as emergency relief. That's the contradiction sitting at the root of this entire industry. Daycare was invented as charity. A century later, we expect it to survive on cold business math. You cannot run charity logic through a business spreadsheet forever without hitting a wall. As more women entered the workforce, daycare stopped being an emergency measure and became a necessity for the middle class. Demand exploded. And as demand grew, so did public pressure for safety, which meant regulation, and regulation meant cost. Here's what it actually takes to open a center today. You can't just rent a room and put down some rugs. States dictate square footage per child, fire suppression systems, child height plumbing, secure entry points, and padded outdoor play areas built to strict impact standards. Retrofitting a space for infant care alone can cost between $150,000 and $400,000, often more than opening a full-service restaurant. Except a restaurant can add tables to make more money. A daycare owner hits a hard legal ceiling on how many children can be in a room, period. And that ceiling is where the real math breaks. A public school teacher might manage 25 kids alone. For infants, the law typically requires one adult for every 3 or 4 babies. That means a daycare needs 5 to 6 times more staff per child than a school just to stay legal. Labor alone eats 60 to 80% of revenue before anything else is paid. And because those ratios are law, you can't cut staff when money gets tight. One sick teacher, and you either find a replacement in minutes or you're operating illegally. Now here's the part that should make you angry. Despite background checks, CPR certification, ongoing training, and often a college degree, the median daycare worker earns less than someone working the register at a fast food counter. We trust these people to keep our children alive during the most important years of their development, and we pay them close to the poverty line. The result, 25 to 40% of staff quit every single year. Every departure costs the owner thousands in rehiring and retraining, costs parents the continuity their kid depended on, and costs remaining staff even more burnout. So let's kill a myth right here. People assume daycare is expensive because owners are pocketing huge profits. The opposite is true. Parents are already stretched to their limit. Workers genuinely cannot afford to earn less. Squeezed in between is the owner, running on a profit margin of 3 to 5%. If they're lucky enough to turn a profit at all. Then add insurance. A daycare isn't insured like a normal small business. It's responsible for vulnerable, nonverbal children for up to 10 hours a day away from their parents. Premiums run thousands of dollars a month, and even a lawsuit that gets thrown out of court can rack up legal fees large enough to bankrupt a small center. And when a state changes the rules, new background check systems, new staffing requirements, owners have to comply immediately. They can't just raise tuition 10% overnight. Parents are already maxed out. This is why daycare doesn't behave like a normal market. Normally, when prices rise, people switch to something cheaper, but quality licensed care is uniformly expensive everywhere. So instead of switching, one parent often just leaves the workforce entirely. This industry runs on customers who literally cannot walk away without blowing up their entire career. Then 2020 happened, and the whole fragile system nearly collapsed. Within a year of the pandemic hitting, 1 in 5 licensed daycares in America shut down for good. Decades of razor-thin margins couldn't survive even a few weeks of zero income while rent and insurance kept coming due. It took a $24 billion federal rescue just to keep the system breathing. When that money ran out in late 2023, the industry hit what experts now call the child care cliff. Tuition spiked, enrollment shrank, and centers closed for good. Here's what that means for real families. In dozens of states, sending 2 kids to daycare now costs more than the average college tuition or a mortgage payment. For a lot of households, the second parent's entire paycheck gets wiped out just covering childcare. They are working full-time just to pay for the right to go to work. And on the other side of that transaction is a teacher spending 9 hours a day nurturing your kid, who often can't afford daycare for her own. By the mid-2020s, economists across the political spectrum agreed on something rare. This market is fundamentally broken. You cannot pay workers a living wage, hit safety ratios, keep tuition affordable, and turn a profit all at once without outside support. When the math fails, access disappears. Right now, more than half of America lives in what's officially called a child care desert. Not enough licensed seats for the number of kids who need one. Quick question for you. Are you currently living in one of those deserts, or did you have to move because of it? Drop it in the comments, because your answer is basically a live case study in everything we just covered. So where does this go from here? 2 paths. The first already exists in Sweden, Norway, and South Korea. These countries treat early childhood care the way we treat elementary school, public infrastructure, funded by taxes, not individual paychecks. Staff get real salaries. Parents pay a small, capped fraction of income. If America ever moves this direction, a daycare director in 2100 looks less like a small business owner gambling on survival and more like a salaried school principal. The second path leans on technology. Smart monitoring, automated billing, sensor-based safety systems reducing insurance risk and back-office hours. But technology has a hard ceiling here. No algorithm can hold a crying toddler or teach a 3-year-old how to share. This job stays permanently, unavoidably human. Which brings us back to the real point. Daycare was never a business model that broke over time. It was a charity wearing business clothes for over a century. The question was never how to squeeze more profit out of underpaid workers. The real question is whether we finally admit that early childcare was never meant to survive as a standalone market in the first place. Now it's your turn. If you're a parent, tell us the number. What do you actually pay, and how has it shaped your career? If you work in early education, what's the one change that would fix this fastest for you? Drop it below, hit like if this changed how you see that tuition invoice, and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden economics running your daily life.